Good morning and welcome to the Capital Gang. I am Oscar Semoyamsoke, and this morning we have several topics of interest for discussion. In the studio, I have a long-lost friend. Welcome to Gang, Mr. Edgar Tabaro, Council.
Thank you, Oscar, and a very good morning to our listeners. Also.
Yes. A couple of weeks ago, I had Kwezi Tabaro, and everyone here on the table had real problems. They kept calling him Edgar, and you're saying maybe one of these days both of us should appear, and then we'll see how you'll manage.
We agreed on many things, and incidentally, Kwezi is my daughter's name.
Yes.
And I've interacted with Kwezi right from his formative years. Anybody would imagine we are related, but we are not blood relatives.
Well, you look different anyway.
I'm from, both from Toro region.
Yes.
But he comes from the plains of Ntoroko. And the persons from that place have the kind of... His spouse is a fashion designer.
That's true.
She's a fashion designer.
Okay.
And you don't have to go for her own dad. Her own dad at 80 what? What's
90.
95. Is more stylish than any one of us here.
Wow.
Mzee Matthew Richikaire.
Wow.
You're mistaken.
Rather no.
No,
I've mixed up the issues.
Don't worry. We can leave it.
I've remembered that.
Yes, I have another guest in the studio. We are having him for the first time. You're most welcome to Gang, Mr. Simon Opoka.
Thank you so much. Simon is my name.
Simon Opoka.
Opoka.
Sorry, Opoka.
Spelled Opoka.
Spelled Opoka, but it's Opoka.
Pronounced Opoka.
Opoka.
Thank you so much.
Is it the actual pronunciation, or you're just showing off with a different
I would
kind
be
of...
glad to show off, but that's the actual pronunciation.
That's the actual pronunciation.
Incidentally, there was a PS called Pico Poka.
Yes.
And there's also Simon. I believe you're related.
No. There's also James Opoka, whom many remember.
Yeah.
And then Opoka, the rally icon, and a media personality.
Yeah.
And then Opoka, the tycoon of Kipum House.
Yes.
So you're the tycoon?
No, I am maybe trying to I'm maybe trying to start also a name for myself and the generation to come. Thank you so much for hosting us.
Thank you. Yes. Malcolm Pamizo, you're most welcome to Gang.
Thank you, Oscar.
Yeah.
A very good morning to our listeners.
Yeah, fancy bag there. For 1 minute, I thought you were going to unleash 50K notes.
You haven't looked inside?
I haven't looked inside.
Not yet, yes.
Okay. And Ivan, most welcome. Ivan Rugamba, most welcome to having you on Gang.
Thank you, Oscar. Although today you've sat me on the wrong side of the chamber.
There's always a first time. So we start with a Balalo issue in Northern Uganda. So perhaps beginning with you, Simon Opoka. I don't know what's going on, because some people think the Balalo shouldn't be in Northern Uganda, and I think the ones who think it the most are actually people in Northern Uganda. Then others think, how can you be limited about where to go if you live in Uganda?
Yeah.
So let's start with a little bit of a background.
Thank you so much. It's also a pleasure that I'm meeting Ivan after a very long time. We shared a lot in the civil society space, which I left and went into coffee, and the other is politics.
Do you have a new pickup as well?
Assuming so.
Simon, do you have a new pickup as well, or he has really gone past you?
I need to be very close to Ivan so that my status changes.
It is the coffee farmers, incidentally, who are in vogue.
Okay. Okay. One of these days we are going to discuss that 7 billion. Is it 7 or 37 billion?
Largely, I'm a worker of the Small Farmer Society around East Africa, and I worked as a M&E for coffee farmers in Rwanda, Burundi, and Uganda. At that time, under the parent organization of that owns Yugacof, Sukafina.
Okay.
So, on the Balalo question, one, there is a lot of myth in terms of this current information and the outcry, Balalo everywhere. However, context to it is that the question of Balalo is not a recent question and is not specific to Acholi. About 10 years ago, we had when Teso people were making noise, and whoever is in the bracket of who is who in Teso was up at arms. And remember at that time...
was it against Balalo or against
Karamojong? Yes, against Balalo settling around the shores of Kyoga. And I remember the Mike Musa Chwero around immediately after the LRA and had formed the Arrow Boys. And I remember Amuka later. After that, there was also an issue of police beating up people who had taken the law in their hands to chase the Balalo after the Amuka, which was a militia formed of the locals to resist the LRA expansion into Teso and Lango. And we know these images. And the issue is not specific to right to own land or movement of citizens and to settle anywhere. It has a context. This particular one in Acholi, we started hearing this issue in 2012. At the time that the deputy AIGP, I think, Grace Turia, yes, when he was commanding the eviction of the people of Apa. Actually, the first encounter that had bullets fired to disperse Acholis were that the Acholi being evicted in Apa. When they returned to their places, they met Balalo hiding in a place where their hearts are being touched. And then they were told, there is a commander from Kampala. He seems to be part of these people. Let's go and face him. And unknowingly, AIGP Grace was faced by hundreds of Acholi with the sum of the Balalo cattle. And that's when the APA became a bloody thing up to now. So that is the first fear people had, that you're evicting us, but people were replacing us as herdsmen from across West Nile. After that, we remember that there is a time that the president actually ordered the military, even offered gunships, to make sure no Mulalo is left anywhere in Acholi. That was towards 2016. And the time that you remember AIGP Kaiura and IGP Kale Kaiura during his time, the president of Uganda ordered all the field forces he could marshal, and all the Balalo were actually extracted from Acholi. And since then, there was an order that no Mulalo goes back to Acholi. No truck is to ferry any animal. Even some of us, including myself, that had bought some animals to take to Acholi, it was a long process through the district veterinary officer, the GISO, DISO, for anybody to take a truckload of animals. Then all of a sudden, the president issues executive order number 3 about customary land. And that is when, in reply, the Balalo approached General Caleb to look into that matter. And in Pron, they set up a base where every actually with the knowledge of cultural land was summoned, including Minister Hilary Onek, to explain why we can't, as Acholi, coexist with Balalo. And that was in resistance to the executive order, number 3. Now, it is then that the issue of fencing land, that to prevent Balalo's animals from straying into people's garden, that actually gave the magnitude of how much land and how much incursion and how much cultural interaction, conflict was baying underneath. Because when the Balalo started fencing their land, that's when miles and miles of stretches of swath of land you couldn't pass. And yet this is a community that Oscar's land, if you have a woodlot, I would harvest for fuel. The streams where we collect water, normally near an anthill, the natural streams, was owned by nobody. The natural streams that flow towards Achua and any other tributaries were open for anybody's animal to graze. In some of this land, NGOs that tried to resettle people after IDP camps had sunk boreholes, and from then on, you couldn't access it. The other very important thing to look at, all Acholi homesteads, you had naturally roads going through a homestead, all. So here are square miles of land fenced, and no Acholi can go through that land because now it's trespass. And when the eviction order in Pade, they carried out, in Palaro, in Palabek, which is Lamour, they carried out. The massive resistance is largely in Palaro, which is the birthplace of Brigadier Perino Koya. Now, this is one thing that if you don't get it, nobody will understand you naturally. During the time that Okoya Perino was murdered, killed, or assassinated, so many of his kith and kin in Palaro, the best of the best, joined the rebellion against Amin. And their best sons went through what we used to call Young Oliech. It was a slogan for underground movement to recruit and fight Amin. And these sons of Acholi, the best of their best, went to Acholivu. From Acholivu went by ship to Moshi, Arusha, and joined the liberation against Amin. Unfortunately, most of them, it is said, they sank in a ship in Lake Victoria trying to make an incursion on Amin's government in 1972. And that is when there was a massive...
Many also died in an air crash.
Pardon?
Many died in an air crash on the Kilimanjaro.
Okay.
Because they formed the bulk of what they call Kikosi Malum.
Kikosi Malum, yes.
Fronasa was mainly another anchor,
Fronasa,
which I don't want to talk about.
Fronasa was an anchor military group that was supporting the general objective, but the core of this army was largely young men educated who should be in their 60s, 70s now as grandparents and the household heads of Palaro. So there came a vacuum. And also, Palaro had suffered a Sese fly attack, and the Palaro is the most depopulated place of all Acholi sub-counties. It is also the most remote because only one road goes through it to Lamour. And because of that, LRA had a safe haven. What LRA didn't do in that place, you can't speak of it up to now. It is the place that UPDF2, then NRA, made sure that nobody was left with any animal that the LRA would exploit. Particularly my family of Daniela Yela had over 200 heads of cattle by 87. And in their compensation claim, which government accepts to compensate, that they have never compensated, of the 287, government has accepted that one Captain Ruben Ikondere, who commanded the forces, which they accept is verified, it's a government liability, and government will compensate up to 47 heads of cattle. From 2005, when this started, up to now, we have not got one. Now, it is this same community that is hosting cattle-rich people who have altered their culture. And the other thing that we needed to see and also know is that Acholi land is communal land. What does it mean? Beyond the rhetorics of I can't sell it to Acholi, to a non-Acholi. Acholi land design is like this. Everybody in a hamlet of maybe 6 grandfathers would own a swath of land. That swath of land is divided into one for grazing, communal grazing. Everybody contributed their animals from bride price, from any other sweat that you have earned, into a common kraal. Why? Because everybody cannot graze since we have a place called Okang for grazing, for planting crops. Everybody went and planted crops in a gazetted area. And then we left land for woodlots. Yeah. But the most important, which is the land now in question, we left land for controlled game hunting.
Okay, now I'm going to interrupt you because the way you are so passionate about this, you might speak the whole 2 hours.
Maybe let me wrap up this.
Yeah.
So when our community were headed into IDP camps and left to go without preparation to resettle, because there was no preparation for our people to resettle, given the socio-political structure that broke down, many actually went and started sharing this communal land. Some of the communal land were actually given to other people, and they have freehold through government system, because Acholi never had control of land. The land in Acholi was crown land. So the conclusion on this per se is that these individuals, having taken of public land, look for powerful people in government, connive with them and sell to them. And now the blow is families, graveyards, water points, streams have been fenced off. What would you do for a future of a people that feel threatened?
Okay.
And some of the past words then, they're after your land, they're after killing you, they're after making you extinct. However much myth these things were, today we are facing them. And then the mineral issue. So for now, Oscar, that gives us a footing of where the Acholi people are from.
Okay.
Thank you.
Edgar Tabaro, you've had a passionate presentation from Simon Oboka on the issues, fencing off public land, no access to utilities, no land, sold off to big people, problems.
Yes. I've had the passionate, actually for him it's not even just a passionate presentation, it's a passionate appeal.
Yeah.
And he's given a good history to it. But just to correct the impression, it's not public land. This is communal land.
Communal land.
Now, as he's told you, he's talked of...
There's a difference between public land and
very
communal
much so. Very much so.
Apart
Public
from
land,
you lawyers, the two lawyers...
Public land is controlled by the Uganda Land Commission. Now, for the Acholi, there are some peculiarities about the Acholi culture. And he's talked of ancestry to up to 6 grandparents.
Yeah,
that would be okay. In Uganda, that would be like a Runyiriri.
Yes.
Runyiriri. And this was very critical, even in Uganda. But I think the challenge that we have upon us is that in 1997, 1998, if you recall, Bwana Moses Biaranga was one of the outspoken persons on the issue of the Land Act. If you remember the passing of the Land Act and the debate that ensued. Now, everything that we're talking about, everything touching on the land in Acholi is addressed in that act. If you were to implement the letter and spirit of that act, believe me, we wouldn't be having these kind of discussions. Malcolm, the Land Act, Malcolm, Tunom Kunzi.
You had to go there.
Tunom Kunzi, his late father, Tunom Kunzi, was actually the architect of the Land Act. In 1993, he undertook a study that gave the impetus and direction for reforming land in Uganda, and in particular to address the pitfalls of the 1975 land decree. However, the way Mr. Tunom Kunzi was what is, for lack of a better description, was a Mutevireist. And Mutevireism was about neoliberalism, neoliberal reforms. So they looked at land, not just, they looked at land from the capitalistic.
Yeah.
And Kisamba Mugerwa does make a very good case study for incorporating these land tenure systems in economic planning. Now that was where the dichotomy arose, that the Land Act looks at individual ownership. However, it does make exceptions on one, access, land use, and management. Now, as far as he's talked about access to hunting grounds, access to water sources, he's talked of access to pastures. And I'm coming to that. Now, I also want to address a misnomer. Balalo is a derogatory term. Balalo is actually a class issue. Balalo are herdsmen who used to herd richer persons' cattle, and they would be paid in form of milk or some animals in seasonal or yearly, annually. Now, calling every pastoralist a Mulalo is a misnomer and in fact an insult.
It used to be an insult, no longer an insult.
No, in Buganda, no. Believe me, one of us here is from a cattle keeping corridor. I doubt he would be very comfortable if you described him as a Mulalo.
The president himself describes them as well.
Well, he has a similar background. As President Museveni has a similar background. In 1960s, when he was a student at Intare School, he undertook these debates and made it very clear at that time it was a class struggle. He had not yet become president. When you become president, there are many dynamics you address. Okay. And unfortunately, on this occasion, it has been tribalized. So, access. Let me give a little bit of a background where the problem really started, which is the genesis of this problem. There's a neighboring state that forcefully evicted pastoralists from their territory and rendered them stateless. Those persons came to Uganda and they found accommodation. Uganda is really accommodative and has a very liberal refugee policy. Now, they went and first settled in Bulisa, and they developed misunderstandings with the local populace. Led by a lady called Grace Bororoza, they lodged a court process to protect themselves. I remember that time my old man was still a sitting judge just before he retired. He gave them an interim order. But eventually, at some point, I think Dr. Kasiri Vatwoki and Birahwa Mukitale, the MP for Bulisa at that time, lodged an application in the High Court, Masindi, that gave an order for eviction of those Balalo. The eviction was forcefully carried out by now General Sejusa. At that time, he was coordinator of intelligence. So those who were evicted headed north and occupied territories in what is now called Acholi. Now, there was a little bit of peaceful coexistence, but over time, as he said, powerful persons in government took advantage of the situation. Now, with connivance with LCs, Gisos,
broken families,
RDCs, and of course broken families. Persons coming purporting to be heads of clans or sub-clans. Remember, there was the effective presence of the state had been affected by the insurgency that had gone on for about 2 decades.
And the socio-political structure
had broken down because these people in IDP camps. We had even, to the extent that we even had teenage-led families. The heads of the families had passed on and didn't have that historical background to access ownership and use of land. So there's another thing that particular persons from Acholi are not bringing out to the open. They are elite Acholi themselves who have grabbed this land. I don't want to mention names, but they've grabbed land as much as 30
I'll
square
share
miles.
honestly with you. Continue, it's okay.
And
it's not that we are sitting on it.
Yeah.
We know what is happening, and we know many that have been reversed.
Some of them are even using this as a preemptive strike.
And that's why they belong to a certain side.
They are launching a preemptive strike because they know it will soon come after them. Because not only do they grab that customary land, they turned it into freehold, which runs counter to the system, the social fabric of a Nacholi. When a Nacholi is born, he is assured of pastures, he's assured of land for cultivation, he's assured of access to water sources. So, I'll again go back to the Land Act. The provisions of the latter act, if they were to be implemented, believe me, the discussion that we'd be having here would be very different. How to make the Acholi land more productive rather than access to it and grabbing. I also wish to add that I'm agreed with President Museveni in as so far as he's implementing the executive order. But where I'm disagreed with him is that, again, that's where he falls in the trap of the Mutebires and Malcolm's late dad, Tino Mukuzi. He thinks nomadism is primordial and therefore cannot be incorporated in national development. And I'm disagreed with that. There are nomads the world over. The Andes region in South America, we have in Denmark, in Russia, Mongolia. And the best example that you can learn from is the example in Botswana, Kama Seretse, Sakarese Kama. He maintained the more nomadic lifestyle of the cattle keepers there. However, did provide public amenities for them to continue living their traditional life, but incorporated in the national economy. How did he do it? One, there are migratory patterns. Migratory patterns. Many of them follow, of course, because of climate change. They follow pastures. Some of these water sources are seasonal. So when you have long spells of the dry season, we do not have technology.
It's there.
We do not have a meteorological drought, strictly speaking. Ours are just extended spells of the dry season.
Yeah.
We've never gone year on year without rain. So, the most what he did, Serese Kama, he established public amenities, migratory patterns, paths. Those ones can clearly be marked out. So you establish cattle dips, cattle markets, valley dams, especially to ensure that people have all year round access to water, and it's worked out there. It's worked out there. So I don't see why the traditional system is very maligned, and we believe living that way is a primitive. To that extent, I'm disagreed.
Right. These are like history lessons on the gang today. Ivan and Malcolm are taking copious notes. Moses has brought out his mini laptop, the phone. So now you're on microphone now. I'm not sure what you're going to be reading. Is it from the laptop, from the phone, from everywhere? Philip in Kampala says, good presentation by Simon and Edgar. But Edgar, you are wrong. Nobody died on a plane in Kilimanjaro. The plane skidded off the tarmac and was rendered inoperable. And Malcolm will answer this question. Moses will answer, or Malcolm, if an executive order is a law. I should say this, Philip is a lawyer. So, Moses, you're on microphone. I am not so sure which one you're going to use first, phone or laptop.
Okay.
You've seen the issues presented by Simon. Edgar has mitigated some, agreed with part of the executive order. Where should the Balalo go?
Well, where they come from?
Bulisa, according to Tabari.
No, actually, neighboring country. And
It was Tanzania.
I dare Moses to mention the country.
Tanzania.
No, we have to be. Man, we
At
are,
least I remember it was Tanzania.
we are diplomats.
during
I mean, we are.
Magufuli's time.
The way I responded is I said, where do they go? Should they go? Then where do they come from? Somebody must have come from somewhere. Now, where they were they there legally, were they illegally? That's another matter. I do agree with some aspects of, you see, Acholi land or any other land. I own land myself. I wouldn't want anybody to come and start doing activities on my land without my authority. So the land in Acholi is not free for all. There is some leadership, some ownership. The ownership mechanism might be different from the rest of the country. When I talk about communal, when I talk about the rest of within private and some things like that, so that should not be abused by anyone. As I said, if I own land as Moses Viarangan family, Edgar cannot come and start grazing or planting crops on my land without my authority. If he's to do so, we must have either agreed on a rent basis or whichever mode we have agreed upon. So anybody going to Acholi land or any other part of Uganda and start doing the activities on land without the knowledge and the authorization of the ownership of that, or the owners of that land, is doing it illegally. And they must go where they said where they came from. Where did they come from? If you say you came from a neighboring country, or are you citizens of that neighboring country, in which case you are non-Ugandans? Or had you also gone there for the same purpose? You are Ugandans, but you had also gone there just for nomadic grazing. I disagree with Edgar when he says nomadism can be a form of development. It's very tricky.
I said incorporated. You see, the Mutabiri is also.
No, whichever way you tell me, because you see, because especially because see, somehow there must be ownership of land. Now, if you're going to say a nomad, if it is a nomadism within the community, like Mr. Poka was explaining, that they actually have their grazing land. That form of grazing within Acholi is nomadism. There's no doubt about it. Because nobody is saying this is my own, I can go and graze anywhere within that bit of it and come back. That's nomadism within the Acholi land, within the people who own that land communally. That's for me is okay. But I don't come here and go to somewhere in Ruwero and say because I'm a nomad I start grazing anywhere. That would be wrong. That would be wrong. But if the way that you only graze in the communal way of ownership of land is nomadism, and that one I wouldn't have a problem with it because that's how they have been doing it. The way the Karamojongo do it. Now Karamoja is still nomadic, it is accepted. But if somebody comes from here, from
when they go to Teso, that's when it is annoying.
Yeah, because it is not their land. That is Teso land, and they are owners of that land in Teso, either individually or as a group and so forth. So those who are there on just they went to look for. By the way, that Northern Uganda has very good grazing land. When you are passing by, for those who know something about cows, you see a lot of good pasture.
Moses, you're going to bring more problems for them.
No. That's a fact.
Let me add there. They actually used to despise Ankole meat from Ankole cow. But right now, because of the nature of the grass, the taste of the meat
has changed.
Yes, just changed. And you're right. And what is right is right.
It has improved.
Yeah.
I can tell you the taste and even the mass for per kilo has improved.
Body mass.
Yes, and these are the things people talk of, and we have to be honest.
Okay, hold on.
I drove from Lira through Yam, through Karuma, through Olwio, through Karuma again, up to Koboko. Oof. Now in West Nile. the grass is so beautiful. And there's what we call panicum maximum. Panicum is a good is a good pasture. In fact, a kilo here in Kampala is sold about 40,000 to go if you want to plant the pasture. But in northern Uganda, it's just natural. So what here I plant at my farm, there you find it somewhere. And the shrubs are not so big, so it's good land for grazing, but whoever wants to graze there must graze there with the knowledge of within the law. And the law also incorporates the traditions of the people. So anyone doing that outside the law should really be dealt with. And this morning when I knew it was the topic, I talked to the minister in charge for Northern Uganda, the Honorable Grace Kuichwin, and she said they have so far, I think, impounded about 4,600 cows within the people who are supposed to be evicted. And out of that, about 3,000 have been claimed and people gone away. So they're still holding about 1,600, and the exercise continues. And it will have to continue.
Exercise of evicting.
Those who are there illegally continues.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Malcolm.
Yes, Oscar.
You're on microphone. And the special question that was asked of you is an executive order law to begin with.
An executive order is a form of law, and I think that would also be using the word law a little bit loosely, because
Using the word law illegal.
no, loosely, because again we also know that law is created by a certain arm of government. Now, the executive, as another arm of government, can also set about certain rules and regulations or policies, so to speak, that ideally are designed to, in some ways, implement the existing law or address an immediate issue ahead of a more comprehensive address by the legislature, which would be Parliament. So, must you obey an executive order? I would strongly advise that you do. Can it be challenged? Yes. An executive order can be challenged, and there are processes for that, just like any other policy would be. I'm not going to address myself to the executive order itself. And I'd just like to thank Edgar and Simon and Moses for really framing where we are now. I think, and I agree with a lot of what they say in terms of how we have come to where we are today. I think that it is also challenging to look at this issue in isolation from the general socio-political context that we are in Uganda. I think that the government of the day has had a lot to play in getting us to where we are now. Some of the issues are historical, but how have they been managed over time? And I think that is something to question as well. What is the process, and without going into the real history, what is the process, what is the contribution towards state formation that we find ourselves in right now? Because the laws are bound. The Constitution, very comprehensive, albeit it's several amendments. The Land Act, as we've been told, itself provides for all of these. So who then has created the situation or enabled the situation for us to have a law on the books which doesn't get implemented? For us to have a law, a right to move around as a Ugandan, but that right gets affected by, certain interests here and there. I think a key question for Northern Uganda is, and I think Simon touched on it, how the resettlement was done. what levels of justice were provided by the resettlement itself, because it became an opportunity for opportunists to take advantage and pretend to have an interest in that area and have created the mess that we are seeing now. When we talk about transitional justice and what that looks like for restoration of communities that have gone through conflict, that is something that this government has shied away from for a very long time. Things around truth-telling, memorialization, you'll realize Edgar says the plane crashed, but someone says no, it skidded, and there's no agreement. And as long as that happens, then yes, so you might both be right. But I think that
the more serious, when Simon here is talking about LRA and the devastation and all, someone else say, look at how we rescued Northern Uganda. Yeah. So such a commission maybe would bring them together to kind of say the same thing.
Yeah. The young soldiers that gave their lives for a true cause to pacify the North, and they are gone. If they came back today, no matter their tribes, many died and perished naturally. What would they say of this?
And that's where state formation comes in. That are we looking at the sacrifices that are made by different groups of people, because those that died were from different parts of different parts of the country, and are we appreciating their legacy, or what they hoped would be their legacy from a perspective of inclusivity and not trying to divide? I love the example you gave of Botswana, but I think Botswana has, and it's almost similar to what Moses was saying about having the communities themselves. You have a limit, and I think where we are now, it's going to be very difficult. I'm not trying to defend the thoughts of my late father, but I think it's going to be very difficult to.
It's okay. It's ideological.
It's hold on.
Yes. And I think it's going to be very difficult to look at nomadism. Especially within, you see, you can't divorce from the social political process we're in, because a place like Botswana has had one of the most stable democracies in Africa. So when you have a stable democracy like that, you don't have LRA as the LRA insurgency as a factor in this issue. Then there is a nuance that comes in there. You talk about the Danish; they, for intents and purposes, a welfare state, and that too plays into how they are able to accommodate. Now, in a country like Uganda, where we are very, very far from state formation, very, very far from being one nation, from a nation state building. So now,
that has always been President Museveni's argument.
But how
the reason why
how do we get there?
Keep around.
But and he has failed to get us there in 40 years. Maybe the next 10 will be the magical ones. But how do we get there? But well, if it's a process, how do you build on without removing from? Because the way it appears, when you have the levels of impunity that are in this country, when a general will go and fence off land, or an important person will go and fence off land, and that is that. Moses will come here and tell us that if someone is violating the law, they should be punished. And we agree with you, story. But that's where it ends. I'm glad Simon is willing to mention some of these names. Maybe Moses picks up on them and something gets done.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think that the future really lies in finding a way of accommodating the pastoralists within those communities. I do agree that they can be provided with certain amenities. Education, for example, for the Karamojong has been a very important part of how they have maintained their pastoralism, but then also still moving to some levels of sedentary lifestyles.
Ivan. You've been listening well.
I'm taking notes.
Yes.
The first class student. Yeah. He's called the first class, by the way. He's no ordinary student.
Yes. he has Moses' way of playing around with statistics. I will not say lying. Playing around with statistics.
Sometimes called.
Yes.
Oscar, sometimes it's called sophistry.
That's the correct word.
Oscar, I have 4 points to make on this issue. The first is Mr. Boka, Edgar, and the colleagues have given a historical background to the land tenure system, so I will not bother with that. I will concern myself with the immediate subjects we're discussing, at least the immediate history of this. And the first issue was a point of illegal incursion and grabbing of land in northern Uganda. In 2021, the president, before this executive order, there was a letter written by the president to the Right Honorable Prime Minister, dated November 2021, in which it was under the subject inconsiderate, I think illegal and inconsiderate Balalo. You know, that was the subject of the letter. It was written to the Right Honorable Prime Minister Ruben Anabanja. And the conclusive part of that letter was there was a committee led by General David Mhozi, the current state minister. No. It was General David Mhozi. There was there was a committee led by the General David Mhozi, State Minister for Internal Affairs. It included the late Minister Angola. Yeah, it had Bright Ramirama. So they were all soldiers. Yes, this was a committee set up to verify some of these issues, ensure that those who are grabbing land and what are evicted from northern Uganda, and fulfill two conditions. The first condition was that ensure that the Balalo who exist in northern Uganda have legally leased or bought land. The second was that those who are there have fenced that land and have water sources in those lands to avoid communal conflicts of land straying to graze on other people's land, gardens, plantations, and all of those. The third point of that directive for that committee was to put in place stringent guidelines for the movement, to regulate the movement of cows into northern Uganda via Karuma and all of that. The General David Mhozi committee went and made a very comprehensive report. I have a copy of this. Yes, I have a copy of that report. Which we can delve, but it's very voluminous. But one of it gave a historical perspective of these issues, of why the Balalo continue to flock into.
It actually doesn't look at Acholi alone. It's comprehensive. Pokot, Teso, West Nile, and but leaves out Kasese.
Yes. Because I think the discussion then was specific on northern Uganda. So that report concludes by putting in place guidance, and they almost outlaw issuing of permits for movement of cows, into northern Uganda. But they report to the president.
That's 2021.
Yes, for 2023. But the committee was set up in 2021. So finally, the idea is that there is a committee now evicting those people who are illegally in there. They have put in place laws to regulate the movement of cows into northern Uganda. That should have sort of settled the matter. But now once that the report is out, then the people from northern Uganda now bring other issues to bring the argument to say, there cannot be an aspect of legal buying, because land in Acholi is what? Is communally owned. Communally owned. Edgar and my friend here will guide whether there isn't a process of translating communal land into freehold or legal land, because there is actually in the law a clear process of translating a communal land, customary land into freehold land. And like somebody had already hinted here, some elite Acholi and people from northern Uganda have actually been doing what? Have been parceling out land and translating it into freehold titles. So the Balalo now came up with the argument and they said, why are we being treated differently? Because now the argument of land being communal or customary is no longer standing because it is not it is no longer a tenure system AI. It becomes an issue. Moreover, Oscar, what complicates matters is that there are non-Ugandans, foreigners who have come, parceled out land for investment, who are existing in Northern Uganda. We know about the attack sugar project. We have many other projects where investors have come, bought land in Acholi, and are using it for production. So the Balalo are asking, are there different land tenure systems for different categories of people? One for a local Acholi, the second for Balalo, and the third for non-Ugandan investors in Northern Uganda. Are there 3 land tenure systems in Acholi? That is the second point. The second point. The third point, Oscar, is the issue of fencing. Opoka here gave a good perspective because land in Acholi is historically not fenced or gazetted in that. It was usually boundaries were guided by physical features. Okay, but I think actually, yes, but I think
I stop there.
Okay, but I think as other regions of the country came to a fencing, actually has been at the tail end of this transition into using now the formal features
of Echiwanyi.
Exactly.
Just put Echiwanyi there.
Yes, but I think now as other regions of the country have come to fencing and all, actually has been at the tail end of this transition into this modern day fencing.
So conclude for now.
I'm concluding. So when the Balalo started this fencing, as Opoka claimed, they started gazetting water sources. Yes, they started now gazetting these valleys, these traditional landmarks, and all of this, which became a source of problems. But that traditional fencing of the Acholi also had issues. It was the source of boundary contestations, between the upper land conflict and many of these issues, because the boundaries with the function of memory of some of the elders, of physical features, which of course as time goes and development on the land emerges, these traditional boundaries start to get blood. Finally, my final point is land now, land issue now has become a political and cultural issue rather than an economic factor of production, as we should know it. And the problem, and it is so because the underlying issue that is for which now the Balala are being scapegoated is that they are historically unresolved issues of land, of war debt compensation, and the general aftermath of the war in Northern Uganda, because Northern Uganda reconstruction and rehabilitation, because people were brought from IDP camps and resettled in a manner that is still, and the people lost their cows in the mid 2000s and were not sufficiently compensated. Economically, actually, Northern Uganda has continuously ranked on the lowest bits of the poverty poverty index, and therefore they actually reasonably say they cannot compete in a free market. The idea of a free market economy of land selling and buying is rigid, or it cannot make sense for people who are marginalized, who are historically marginalized in that sense. So for me, the solution is that the government must go ahead and address the issues of war claimants, war debt compensation, and resettlement, rather than scapegoating Balalo, who are, I would say, are actually pastoralist agriculture migrants into Northern Uganda, who are, I could even call them agriculture investors, because they are bringing cows into Northern Uganda. There's a booming cattle market, and then
we are going to stop here. Yes, you're coming back. You're going to stop here for now.
Yes.
For it is 2 people who have actually given an opinion on what should happen. Moses has said eviction continue. And
that's what the verification committee says.
No, I'm saying on this show.
Yes, and Oscar, and mind you, it is headed by.
Hold on.
The eviction committee does not say those who bought should be evicted. It says those who illegally and grabbed and don't have their land fenced.
So
those are the ones that should.
As we go into a break, Moses says eviction continue. Ivan says Balalo can even be seen as an economic activity or even investors.
Yes.
So, and Simon has not said what he would like directly. A question to you by Noawine just says, Mr. Opoka, clarify on your submission where you talked about Captain Ikondere in this whole thing. What does the late Ikondere, who to the best of my recollection died in 1998, have to do with the Balalo? Please clarify after the break.
Thank you. You see, Ivan
1.3 Capital
If you
FM.
try to imagine the taste of a regular cup of coffee as a sound, it would probably sound like this. Not nice, but perhaps it may sound like this. Better, but not great. Now allow us to present the sound of the taste of Star Cafe Premium Coffee. Now that's the sound of a great coffee taste. Because only the finest Ugandan coffee goes into making the Star Cafe Premium. It's great. The greatest coffee experience.
Stuck in the same meal routine. Stuck in the same meal routine. Stuck in the same meal routine. Don't live life on repeat. Enjoy Minute Maid Refresh, full of flavor to refresh every meal. After all, meal times are more filled with life when you are refreshed. So fill those precious moments with a refreshing burst of flavor with Minute Maid Refresh in delicious mango, apple, and orange flavors. Minute Maid, filled with life. The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM.
Welcome back from the break. Great discussions here. Simon, you're on microphone, and a lot of people are following the discussion. Some even calling in the break. So, questions to you.
That particular question is that what has then the one I mentioned, Captain Ruben Ikondere, got to do with the Balalo? I made it clear as a genesis to part of the anger people have. My particular family in Balalo, in 87, 88, because the UPDA, you call the remnants of UNLA, that had been inspired to return from world UN camps, and they started a rebel activity that signed a peace agreement in 1990, 91. They were feeding off a lot of our own animals, and the NRA, as a policy, cleared all the animals, and it is on record that my family, of the 100 plus animals we had in 87, 88, is willing to compensate in 2005 up to now 47 heads of cattle. Okay? And it is proved, and is also in the documents for the compensation, that the commanding officer that headed the raid, perhaps to deny the rebels a feeding ground, was Captain Ruben Ikondere. And just a moment, we are not going to...
Just a correction.
Okay.
I think the Ikondere I knew
by 87.
was never captain at
was
that
a
time.
major at the time of this crisis.
But anyway.
No, of passing, no, in 87, it is in the documents verified by UPDF. And it is the basis for my family to get compensation.
Yeah.
Now, part of the anger my family has, the hamlet, is that by 87, we had over 200 heads of cattle belonging to more than 10 household heads.
But now
and
the
these were bride
compensation
price.
is 47.
The compensation agreed in 2005 are 47. Okay?
And it has not come.
47. Up to now, not one.
Okay.
Now, this same family is facing Balalo, who have come, actually not Balalo, senior government officials who have done exactly what you've said Balalo are. By the way, the Balalo right now, if we had this show in Balalo, they would be here, even in thousands, because they are actually workers. They are workers, let me be honest with you. And that's why I started by saying there is this myth of classifying ethnic groups as Balalo. No. They are individuals with the ranks in government, and some are Acholi, some are not Acholi, and they're the ones who come and take advantage of broken families, having failed to resettle people with the NITEP, NUSAF, NAP, PRDP, parallel to budget. Remember, parallel to national budget. And they are taking advantage of poverty. One particular one that is hurting, because last week I met people for fact find. I don't speak my mind. I go and call returnees, and this is a woman who had been in the bush for 15 years. In Acholi, it is only a woman who is married and buried at your home. That's yours. If she has any problem, she can come back to her father's home. With any child, even the husband. And if Ivan Rugambwa,
That's correct.
Rugambwa, if Ivan marries my sister and somehow in the cattle corridor where he comes from faces a problem, Ivan can come home to Opoka's home, and I would welcome you and your wife, who is my sister, and I'll show you land. That's how Ivan will get land in Acholi. But you will not get it as a community of the Balalo. You will get it as my son. And from then on, your children are Acholi. But we know that Ivan is not Acholi. This is how Acholi gives you land. In return, you can even give us animals, okay? Now, let him this is important in relation to this lady. This lady was abducted, spent 15 years, came back with the children. She has failed, she has refused to tell us the father, okay? Because of trauma. Perhaps she doesn't know, she knows. Now, she knows her father's land is her refuge, her safety net, and the hamlets give us psychosocial support and cushion. Comes back, and the man who has brought Balalo only wants to know, who is Opoka Simon? I am the son of Pilipo. Pilipo is Philip. Okay, you're the son of Pilipo, you're the firstborn? Oh, in our culture, you're the one who is the heir. So they deal with me. And out of some reasons, I sell the land to them. Now, immediately I have sold the land. And you're fenced off. The community comes and says, Rugambwa Ivan. Remember, Simon could have been a son of a daughter. Says, we gave you land so that you take care of our progeny, our grandchildren.
Like we gave you land in trust.
In trust. You're holding it. One, here's the graves of the dead. And we bury the dead who have died naturally in our compound. The dead who have died violently, we bury you away, facing away, so that you go and seek your own justice because we believe you are alive. Okay? Secondly, we have cultural sites there. There's what we call Wankach. And every place in actually, when you see 2-3 mango trees, that was a homestead. If you have bad luck and you're losing lives there, you move, but you don't unearth, you don't excavate, you don't remove the graves. Now, some of the Balalo are saying, we don't want your, it's called Malalo in Uganda, the graveyards. They are even paying this person who has sold the thing illegally to remove graves. That is a whole history gone. And yet I could...
One of your own. One of your own has...
there is what they call criminal liability, right? And responsibilities,
one
right?
Of your own has been involved in exhuming persons.
Edgar, first, don't let him lose this line.
There. Like you said, there are challenges everywhere. But this is at a community level.
Yeah.
We are talking at that ethnic level and the systemic. Now, in Pade, in 2017, this brings in 2 soldiers. There's one gentleman called Tumusime, comes and hires land given to a husband to a daughter in the home at 7 million. Later on, there are documents that come. He has bought it at 700 million shillings. They add zero.
So is this documented somewhere? Because
it is.
I don't want.
I can.
Is this in a report? I don't want now more calls.
No, it is in a report. They are verifiable. There are reports, and there's even a petition to ministers of internal affairs, of lands, and everything. It's documented.
Okay.
Now, this particular person in this land where he had actually paid as rent or hire turns it into a forgery, has bought. Brings in hundreds of heads of cattle. The community walks to this fellow. Who are these people? We gave you this land in trust, and you are in Lamogi clan as our own son. Why did you give away? The man says, no, they only came here for a few years and they're leaving. And then the man says, no, we bought. And that's how they end up with the local leadership. Guess who comes up as the owner, calling, influence peddling? Please, Mayor of Pade Town Council, it is me, it is my thing. That's when they run to their fellow son, who's a general, they run to Lokech and say, Lokech, can you compensate this man? And they evict the animals and kill even some. This is the same man who locates to Atiak. You get it? And in Atiak, he has 8,000 acres of land.
So Simon, let's stop there.
We will stop there, and
I
want
to ask you questions. Put number 1, 2, 3, 4. What should happen in your opinion? One, using very short sentences.
One, in very short sentences, when the peace talks of Juba took place, it was the best opportunity for government to listen to a more systemic issue concerning the Acholi. And,
government should listen to.
There is the comprehensive permanent solutions to the LRA and the war in the north. That document, I'm sure it's accessible. That document, if implemented vis-a-vis the Land Act, part of our issues of safety would be sorted.
Number two.
The second thing is about war victim compensation remedies. So we lost human resource. Uppsala University or Study on Africa estimates 15,000 young people are either dead or missing, unaccounted for from that region. It is only those who come back alive that are given a certificate, given a bicycle and a mattress, who go back home. The ones whom we have lost, nobody has talked about.
Number
then
3.
The cattle compensation, which was our wealth.
Even
which
if
is
it
also
is 47 heads, deliver it.
Actually, let's not go there because it is a kind of worms.
But do the compensation.
Do the compensation.
Is there number 4?
Number 4 is actually go back to get everybody who has bought land in Acholi, private, whether you're Acholi or you're non-Acholi, get them out and take case by case.
Okay.
And finally, I needed to correct an impression. I'm secretary of one of the sugarcane outgrowers. Atiak Sugar did not buy land. Atiak Sugar leased land. And that land belongs to the John Omaya, 25,000 acres. Their plan is to expand to 60,000 acres. And they leased at just €4. €4 an acre. You get it? And the reason why government is pumping in... Just a moment.
Yeah.
No, don't go there, Ivan. The reason why government is pumping money is that people who are affected by the war were listed as beneficiaries. Unfortunately, they are not at the forefront of benefiting because it is heavily mechanized and have been pushed out. Over 10 years now, nobody has hardly got 1% of the promised change. So government should take this seriously.
Pause on this now.
Thank you.
I'll let you give conclusion. Moses, you.
Yeah, I wanted to make some comments. First of all, government has taken rehabilitation of Northern Uganda seriously over the years. I think the question also should be, maybe now, through NUSAF 1, NUSAF 2, NUSAF 3, PRDP 1, PRDP 2, PRDP was the Peace and Reconstruction Plan. Government gave special attention to Northern Uganda, and in all these programs, our government has spent 4 trillion in the period of about 20 years in Northern Uganda. Northern Uganda, that is Lango, Acholi, West Nile, and Teso. It's true, as Ivan said, Northern Uganda still lags behind in terms of poverty indices. I think now there has been a discussion. Should we go for a NUSAF but focusing this mainly on incomes? Because the other ones were mainly on infrastructure. And if today you compare the Northern Uganda with the rest of the country in terms of schools at parish level, at secondary, at sub-county level, health center 3s, Northern Uganda beats the rest of the country.
Even road infrastructure.
Yeah. No, it's not debatable. I know it. I know it for the fact. Because of those programs, there was some the success story about it. So, but also, we also need
Simon, be careful. Moses can tell you how many kilometers are in Acholi. The ones that have.
I know it. So the amount I'm talking about is true. The 4 trillion government has spent over the years is true. It's 4, and then. We're now been to talk about to do another program, but specifically focusing on homestead incomes, on top of what your PDM is doing. Now, but also we also need to know within Acholi, forget about this incursion of the Balalo. I remember when we were doing the manifesto of 2011 elections, after people had come back from the camps, the biggest challenge within Acholi was land among land issues, land wrangles, was the biggest. Up to now, it's still there.
Because of the selling. The problem is
No.
You see, hold on, you're not on micro. Let Moses finish.
Part of the issue was, here is Opoka, who's maybe, and somebody, let me not use Opoka, somebody, his parents died when they were in the camps. It was maybe born in the camps or were in the camps when they were very young. Now, coming back to where the family was, another family has already claimed that piece of land. So the internal land wrangles were still, and I think they're still there. They need to be sorted. It has not a look at the Balalo invasion as if inside it's okay. There's a problem. We need to be sorted within Acholi itself. Thirdly, I think Acholi also have to bear in mind the customary ownership of land in Acholi as exhibited today is what happened elsewhere in the country. There's no exception. There is a time of transition. This question of, I remember one time we were talking to Honorable Mara Tubo then about land ownership. And they said, no, but for us in Ilango, because of the population, every land now, is owned by an individual. You can identify this one who owns this piece of land. And this will happen naturally, and they should be prepared for it to happen. Even today, when you talk to other senior people, they will tell you, yes, we used to have grazing land, we used to have hunting land, grazing land, and family land where we would have the gardens and so forth. But as the children would increase, the family land would eat into grazing land, and grazing land would eat into hunting land. And in most places now, hunting land is lost. It's no longer there, because it has been eaten into by the grazing land, and the process will continue. So we should be prepared that the individual ownership of land it will take place like it has happened elsewhere in Uganda and in the world, and be prepared for it.
Okay.
But it's a question of people taking, as I said earlier, coming and said I can graze freely here.
Oh, I can grab.
And grab that should be done away with.
Okay.
In fact, in the last meeting the president held with the leaders from Acholi was to do what some of the things Simon talked about, what should be done. Said even those who say they acquired land, they bought or they leased, there should be a committee. We agreed on a committee of 10 people to verify. You, Ivan, you say you got land from Opoka. Was Opoka authorized to sell to you? Did he have the cultural authority?
Thank you, Moses.
To sell to you or not? Now, that committee has not yet been set up, but it's going to be set up and do the verification for those who say, I'm here legally, but we find out you are legality.
Okay.
Thank you.
Malcolm, 2 minutes on this one.
Thank you, Oscar. And listening to all the presentations, I think for me the most important bit that seemed to have been missed out was, because it feels from most statistics that the assumption was that you can throw money at this problem and it will go away, and they are trying to do the same with NUSAF, the possible NUSAF 4. Throw money into households and maybe it will go away. Had there been a more deliberate social, because when I talk about transitional justice again, about issues around truth-telling and communal healing, that's how you settle the society before you bring the money in. Because when the money comes in and you have a divided society, then you're just going to disintegrate it further. When the investors, the cattle investors come in and they find a disintegrated community, then they're going to take advantage of them. So the vulnerabilities and challenges that the communities faced because of the war, and that's why I was insisting again that you can't look at this issue and do like for like with any other place, because there are certain nuances in there that speak to specific challenges that need to be considered for us to be able to arrive at a lasting solution.
Okay, Ivan, Ochom here tells you only capitalists like Ivan Rugambwa will front the convenient argument of conversion of customary to freehold land. Like Edgar Tabaro told you, this is an ideological issue, an affront on indigenous customs and attempts to subject people to the thieving free market. A strong comment.
my
making a departure from his
yeah, go to the microphone.
Incidentally, Edward Ochom is my friend, so I'm not sure he
so he knows.
That's why
you
he put the question mark. He put the question mark on capitalist.
Yeah.
So, but the core of my argument here was that let's debate this issue honestly. Let cattle keep migrants or who are being derogatory referred to as Balalo be scapegoated. Let them not be scapegoated for a problem that the government, that is the government's primary responsibility to fix. You know, yeah, in northern Uganda. Yes, let not the Balalo continuously be scapegoated for a problem that is the central government's responsibility to fix. To fix, because these executive orders are just short-term fixes, pouring water on a furnace that will not, embers of a furnace that will not get out easily. The real problem is, look, what Moses has just said and what acknowledges is that this idea, this economic movement and migration of capital and goods will happen in every part of the country. It will transform traditional ways of livelihood and modes of existence. People will come to purchase land. There are no longer people who are static in their own original places of birth. Balalo have moved. They actually themselves during the war migrated to Bunyoro. They had land in Masindi. They did business in Kiriandongo. That had a ripple effect in the prices of land, in the cost of land. That is what is happening in Kiriandongo. In Kiriandongo in 2007, an acre of land was about 1.5 to 2 million. Now it is about 5 million. I'm sure since the Balalo started moving into northern Uganda, land which was being bought at 500,000 shillings now is going to about 2 million or what?
Okay.
Yeah. But
thank
yes,
you.
but
Thank you, Ivan.
Progressively, it will get better. But the northern actually Langi and the other people need to be supported to economically be able to compete in a free market economy for the.
Thank you, Ivan. Let's have Simon back. Before I will not let you conclude, Simon. Edgar can conclude on this topic.
No, that's okay. My concern are basic principles.
Go to the microphone.
My concern are basic principles. Like Ivan proudly says, is a capitalist. I'm a center-right ideologist. The first thing that we need in this is human dignity. You cannot devalue human dignity to a price to the highest bidder. You can't. The second issue I want to raise is social justice. For all that has happened, it is in the hands and within the docket of government to deliver social justice for the community. We can't run away and pitch people against Balalo. The other issue is solidarity. Can you prove to actually people whose people alarmed early, started war and started killing us, and they were saying there is a scheme, and now we are facing things that look like the people who killed us were right? Can you stand with the people and show solidarity? Otherwise, there's nothing called Balalo. They are owners of this land. They are known. Their names are there. Balalo are their workers, and the Balalo have brought in antisocial behavior, which we shall talk to them, and we sit up to LC1 level. But the owners who have bought this land don't come for our meetings, and they travel at night, and they ship their animals after fattening them to Uganda, Egypt food processing plant, where others are not allowed around Nakasongola. Yes. No, just a moment. You're concluding.
I'm an owner in that.
But you're going to speak last.
No. Get this. Get this.
You see, Simon, in a short program like this,
it's a short program.
You can't make accusations. When
no, it's not accusation.
So, otherwise,
not accusation. What I'm saying, there is an opportunity for anyone who has a ranch or can supply. But it seems the current justice system and the lack of solidarity favors those who can actually bid and win the bid and fatten their animals. It's a social claim.
Conclusion. Edgar Tabar.
Thank you so much.
Okay, now I just need to create the impression that
there's an opportunity left us.
yes, no, actually Egypt, Uganda security, no, the one in Bombo is not functional. The one you're referring to is Pearl Meat Industries in Mijera. Pearl Meat Industries in Mijera, Nakasongola. I am a shareholder in that company. We
So you are the people.
He's a capitalist.
No, I'm a center right. I'm a center right like him. I'm a center right like him.
Yeah.
The opportunities are very welcome from anybody.
Yeah.
No. Let me tell you, we are a diversity. We're a diversity company. It's actually the majority shareholder is a Sudanese, former vice president of Khartoum, Mubarak El Mahdi. You know the Malhab El Mahdi family is the majority shareholder. I and two other gentlemen, one called Justice Karhanga and Edwin Tabaro, are the Ugandan shareholders.
But this is not what I've been talking
about. You say no. I have background to that, so it's not true that persons from Macholi are not given opportunity.
Now that you
I need to correct that. Now
conclude
to conclude
on this topic.
I happen to be a Mufuruchi in Toro Kingdom. I also happen to have served as Attorney General of that kingdom. We've had similar skirmishes, but we've kept them at bay, largely because, one, we acknowledge the problem. Two, when it comes to issues of land, we've had engagement with both central government and the kingdom to protect the vulnerable people, be they Batoro, be they non-indigenous Batoro. Yeah, that one we've done, and I was part of those efforts. I was together with the Honorable Kaliba, Kaliba. Stephen Kaliba was Prime Minister of Toro Kingdom, myself as Attorney General. From the government side, we made a deal with the State House. Flora Chichoncho was the other person. And the MOU is very clear on protection of marginalized persons. Now, to conclude on this Balalo, so-called Balalo, actually thing, the Land Act, like I said, has all the solutions. One of them, there's a land fund that is created to compensate, one, victims of dispossession, all to compensate those landowners who have been overtaken by events like squatters and other processes that this other country has undergone, could even be acquisition by government. So, unfortunately for us, no. I'm looking at the Balalo themselves. The Balalo themselves, and I'm talking of the marginalized Balalo, not those, So I'm saying the land act and the land fund, the land fund and the land act, the land fund that is created by the land act.
Comment on Xia, formerly Twitter. Thanks for the show. This is Joseph Burite, because it's sufficiently illuminating. We are stuck in peasantry. Hence, land will remain a major cause of tension in Uganda for a while. Sadly, the judiciary is ill-prepared to swiftly arbitrate land conflicts.
Yeah, but the head of the judiciary himself is conflicted. He's conflicted in the matter. But really, to conclude, the land fund, I see Moses is becoming uncomfortable.
30 seconds to conclude.
30 seconds to conclude. Unfortunately, the land fund, Ivan, the land fund has been turned into a monopoly and a cartel of certain groups and does not benefit the intended persons.
We stop for a break. Malcolm, I always like a safe conclusion, but I'm not sure.
The show.
Yeah, because I thought Edgar would deliver a very safe conclusion. Not Simon, but
The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM. This week on Desert Island Discs.
I have the director for Radio Africa Group Limited, William Pike. I worked there for 20 years, and 20 years is a long time. Very few people spend longer than 20 years running as the head, the CEO of a business. So it was time to move on.
Did you live on good terms with your boss?
Yes, and in fact, but about 2 or 3 years ago, just after my book had come out, he rang to say how much he enjoyed reading the book. It had brought back a lot of memories to him, things he'd forgotten about the Bush War. He remembered the big picture, but he'd forgotten a lot of the little things. My book reminded him of the little things.
The Desert Island Discs, talking success every Sunday at 7 p.m. with Flavia on Capital FM.
Keep it locked, baby.
Fresh hits for Uganda.
On Monday, 18th of December, Uganda joins the rest of the world to observe International Migrants Day 2023. Migrants Day is dedicated to celebrating the contributions of migrants to society and reflect on the challenges they face. National ceremonies will be held at Next Conference Center in Neguru and will be live on NBS television. The theme this year is Act Today with Tomorrow in mind. Tune into NBS television at 10 a.m. this Monday for discussions, insights, and entertainment on, for, and by migrants. This message is brought to you by IOM, the International Organization for Migration.
The Capital Gang on 91.3 Capital FM.
Welcome back from the break. At the earlier break, the microphone was on, but this one, had it been on, I know that Malcolm would have been in trouble. So, Moses, we are going to leave the government, your government's overspend, now requiring trillions. For that one, we'll save for next week, because there's not enough time now, in less than half an hour to the end of the show. So you kick us off with this Congo issue. UPDF is withdrawing, Ivan. And yet Congo has, Congo has sent out many support services, but they have an election coming up. But for UPDF, have we achieved what we wanted?
You have hit the nail on the head with the election aspect. You know,
the other Tabaro was here the other week teaching us about the troubles in DRC.
Every election, the winning ticket for the government that takes over the reins in Kinshasa is a ticket of belligerence against foreign elements, and usually foreign elements is always usually called for Rwandan involvement, and to an extent Ugandan involvement in Eastern DRC. And
so this is a campaign model.
Yeah, you had recently very unfortunate remarks where the president of Congo actually compared the President Kagame to Hitler. You know, so they are in full-blown campaign mode. But also it is a convenient escapist argument, because you see, for centuries since independence, you can't be a country and say forever you will continue to blame your problems on your neighboring states. So what is your responsibility? Responsibility is, there is one of my favorite lines. I think it was in President Obama's inauguration speech in 2008. I think it was along the lines of, for those who blame us for issues here and there, know that your country will judge you for what you can achieve, for what you can do, and not for how you can conveniently explain what is not, what is not working. So the Eastern DRC problem will not rest, because you see the understanding before Uganda went in as part of the East African Standby Force. Uganda had secured a special bilateral arrangement for Operation Suja. I am yet to know whether all those have now gotten out, or whether it is that one still remains. The operation issue, the Operation Suja is not affected. That's good to know, because the specific purpose of Operation Suja was to deal with the ADF, secure Uganda's infrastructure investment and operations in Eastern DR Congo, and secure that trade route that opens the Goma and Eastern DRC markets to Ugandan trade. That mission will continue, and I am glad to know that the East African Uganda has withdrawn as a part of the East African Standby Force. That is a problem for Congo. I don't think that Uganda or Kenya or any other East African countries had any special interest by deploying in the mission. It was out of Pan-African solidarity to secure the Congolese territory and rid it of the insecurity elements that have continued to be a fermenting ground for broader regional insecurity. So that mission unfortunately has been terminated. I think now the Congolese government has allied with Burundi. The Burundian forces have reintegrated. They are the ones who are staying only, and I think there are conversations about the Southern African bloc deploying into Congo. But but that historically has always been the problem. In 1997, 1996, same thing happened here. Uganda and Rwanda, initially, and after that, the Zimbabweans and the South Africans and the Tanzanians now come to fight the East Africans, Uganda, and Rwanda, which are all just repetitive cycles and symptoms of a state, incapable of exerting the full authority over its vast territory.
Ivan is saying things Moses wouldn't say. Even if you challenge him, Edgar. So
there are things I also wouldn't be able to say because I've been subject of missives between heads of state on these matters, so I don't know what latitude I have. Maybe I'll learn from my elder. He can.
No, you're the one on microphone now. So.
He will whisper to me what I. But right from the word go. It was mission impossible for the East African regional forces deployment. I don't know what I can say on air and not say on air, but I'll try to be as diplomatic as possible because I don't want to escalate tensions further.
We have a young lawyer here. She's not here today. She uses much stronger words, especially when talking about UPDF.
I'm aware, but you see, I'm 47 years now, so... I can't be as reckless as a young lawyer. There's much to protect between all of us and between these states.
47, you're a young man.
Yeah, but I'm at my prime. So what I'll use, I'll use reference to the word, the term elephant in the room. Unless and until the elephant in the room is dealt with, there's going to continue being a problem in that part of the world. But the elephant in the room, I'm being diplomatic, Ivan. You're a journalist and you have background to diplomacy. So the elephant in the room runs what they call a Leb-Serum policy. Leb-Serum policy is basically a predatory economy that lives off other economies or natural resources of another economy. That white elephant, in their thinking, rightly or wrongly, the economy cannot survive without having access to the mineral resources of the DRC. Now, all these other things are really side shows. The White House issued a statement on December 11th, the spokesperson for the National Security Advisor, that there had been agreed a ceasefire between this white elephant and Kinshasa. They've not mentioned the rebel groups, the white elephant and Kinshasa. A what? A ceasefire. One, to permit exiting of the what? Of the forces. Two, to allow elections be held in that part of the country. Because there's been an apprehension that we will not have elections in that part of the country. Previously, in the last election, no elections were conducted in that part of the country, by the way. I hope you people are aware. No elections were conducted in the Kivus. So, this white elephant uses the aspect of ethnicity to play out as a credit in the bank. It's like an overdraft that they run every time. And mind you, this white elephant has been permitted on 4 occasions access to that territory to flush out the persons who are perceived to be their enemies. On all those 4 occasions, what happened instead? We saw inquiries in exports of certain mineral resources like coltan, diamonds, and gold from that economy. So, and to address what Mr. Rugamba has been talking about, that there's some kind of state failure in that part of the country. No. Eastern DRC went into a state of, it fell into statelessness because of Mobutu policies 46 years ago in 1977, when there was a coup attempt against him. Mind you, Mobutu, by the way, Mobutu, for the first 10 years Mobutu was in power, he delivered. He constructed roads. All those aerodromes you see, 103 aerodromes were constructed by Mobutu. There was a rail that was constructed. Kisangani Lake Port was extended. Matadi, and also attempted, I think, was it 5,000 megawatts of electricity at Inga. So I'm coming to that. Now, that part of the DRC, the Eastern DRC, are very much detached from the rest of the DRC in terms of language, culture. They speak Kiswahili. Culture, they are mainly, they are inclined to the East African community or the rest of the East African states. So the persons the rest of the rest of the DRC, the other side of the DRC, they are like those, like we used to have in the past, referring to the Northeast.
Northern War.
No, even Northern War, you remember the attitude. Those people up there.
Yeah.
Really, which I think is really anachronistic. So, now.
So the election will go ahead.
The election will go ahead. And by the way, it's on 20th. It's on 20th. By the way,
Wednesday.
By the way, Tshisekedi is the least radical in that whole group. Believe me, it's because Ugandan media is not covering them. Fayulu, even Moise Katumbi, who was seen to be a little moderate when he was campaigning in the northwest, Huatwele and Batwele, Isilo and Buta, the language he used was very hard on the two neighbors to the east. Extremely hard language. Now, there's an aspect I want to bring out that missed out in all discussions I've been seeing around. Right from the word go, when they started the Nairobi conclave talks, spearheaded by Uhuru Kenyatta as he was exiting as president, there's one country in the East African region that consistently kept away from these meetings. When the heads of state were meeting, they would send a permanent secretary for defense. Kept away, no word. Even the communiques, kept away from signing the communiques that were being released. So that country has allied itself with South Africa as well, SADC, and voted in Windhoek to deploy under SADC in the DRC. Now, for South Africa is undergoing many challenges. There's a big likelihood that if the aspect of electricity in South Africa is not addressed, the ANC stands the misfortune of losing elections or sharing power with the smaller parties. Now, it's been escalated to a national security issue. And therefore, Inga Dam.
So the forces must go to
Inga. They have already deployed. Actually, on 5th of March, there was a meeting of the East African forces, the CDFs. Now, DRC sent their equivalent of Brigadier General Igumba, commandant of the Akimaka Staff College, to represent their CDF, low-level delegation, showing that there's this interest in the whole operation. But what was shocking is that if you look at the minutes of the meeting, this East African force has not formally commenced interaction with the South African South African Defense Forces, who are replacing them. There's no really to conclude on this.
Just clarify that the white elephant is not Uganda. For the record, that it is not Uganda.
I don't know why you want to be. I don't know why you want me to say. So Moses, I thought I'd be under protection from Ivan, but now he wants me to reduce it to.
No, we're running out of time.
Much obliged.
Moses. If Edgar, who is not Moses, is using white elephants, now Moses might take us to blue elephants. Your own microphone.
Now, what's the question?
UPDF is withdrawing.
Well, as it has been mentioned, the withdrawal of UPDF is to do with the East African force. which went to Congo, DRC, as a result of East African after and the President Summit. I think the one which is being referred to by Edgar here. Definitely, Congo, DRC should be able to take on its own security. In fact, for me,
keyword is should be able.
Yeah, some of the things when I talk to some of our colleagues, our friends in the Western world, I say, see, when you talk about democracy, without consolidating security of a country, you are off track. I think what we need as a world is the consolidation of even when they talk about refugees and what, why are there refugees? Refugees are there because of failure to handle state. Because the role of the state is to ensure territorial integrity, territorial security in your own country. If you fail to do that, that is the basic you can do for your country. So it's important for the East Africa had come up to help Congo secure its own territory. If the DRC says we no longer need you, we need another person, it's fine. There's no problem. But they must, whoever comes president after the elections, must work towards ensuring that the Congo DRC has a force to be able to ensure security in their own country. Even our working with them on Operation Soja is because we needed to augment their capacity to deal with the ADF, which was not only a threat to Uganda but also to Congo, because ADF has been, they would sneak in and kill people in Uganda, but also they terrorize the Congolese themselves. So working together with the defense forces of Congo is to secure both sides, both Uganda and the Congo side. But if Congo can have its own army to deal with it, that's good for them. Be it. So for me, the issue is look forward to ensure that the DRC has the capacity to deal with what they call negative forces against the neighbors, and also ensure that it's secure within its borders. Nobody can come in the M23, to put a threat to them. Because like Uganda, we went through similar issues. We didn't seek anybody's assistance to deal with LRA, to deal with Lakwena.
They used to get budget support from the British government.
Well, the money is okay, but not forces. We never had the boots on the ground. We're able to deal with them. But even for the budget support, it was not for defense. It was budget for support for school and so forth. Yeah. But
sometimes we know it ends up.
But defense sector reform was from British government.
The biggest challenge we had was how much can you spend on defense to ensure that we deal with the LRA. And when we said no, because they were saying don't spend more than 2% of your budget, GDP. We said no, we have to go beyond that. And when we did it, we were able to deal with LRA and all these forces and secure the whole country. So Congo has to make sure that it secures its own borders. The neighbors shouldn't have any business there.
Simon.
On the question of Congo, there are a number of things at play. I think we should agree that the current president was a negotiated presidency. And before he assumed office, we saw an entourage to the former president of Kenya. We saw a meeting with the president in Uganda, and then he was declared as a president. And he has maintained his presidency based on a negotiation with the neighboring forces, UPDF and others. But there is a history to SADC. You remember when Ban Ki-moon was in this country to amend and agree that it is not a peacekeeping force, but a reaction. They call it what? A reaction force? When SADC formed the basis of the team that flashed out M23 at that time. And Tanzania participated.
It was Kikwete.
Actually, yes, Tanzania participated. And we are seeing...
allow Ivan to have his samosa and chapati.
We're seeing a similar situation playing out.
Tanzania was the contributing force in East Africa as a member of SADC. But before they were deployed, they agreed that they are not a peacekeeping force. It is a peace enforcing force.
Engaging in combat.
Yes, and that's the reason, that's how M23 was pushed to our borders. This time round, the stake is too high for the SADC members, and the stability of Congo
is very critical.
Is critical.
Sure.
And there's even a minister for energy. I remember when I was asked to help one of the presidential candidates in 2016, our best shot to bring energy and be energy sufficient, at the same time borrow mutual security, was to actually tap power from Congo or from Ethiopia, arguing that we shall have mutual interest. And that is now critical for Congo. And I think, in conclusion on my side, this is what you would call strategic ambiguity. The words that are flying. It's for the voters to know that the current president is a very serious president. Because those whose elections they claim were rigged are actually
more radical.
More radical. And by seeing the contingent from Uganda and the neighboring forces leave, it is a sign that he's effective. However, I want to tell, no nation builds her army, a professional army, without the help of others. In Uganda, we had counter-LRA by American forces, and they were the ones who helped coordinate intelligence. And we also saw in the Dominic Ongwen case who our friendly forces were in helping us aggregate evidence against LRA. So the same thing, let's allow Congo, not for selfish reasons, to also reap the benefit of stronger forces with a democratic tendency to stabilize the economy. Thank you.
Ivan, seeing that you have dispatched the samosa and chapati, you can interrupt the banana and just 1 minute.
He's been doing justice to the mega yogurt. I would encourage each one of you to take mega yogurt.
Yes, I'll give you 1 minute and Edgar 1 minute, because now I've seen, I think Malcolm might be the best person to conclude. The safest person on the table to conclude.
On the Congo.
On Congo. They allow you just another minute.
For me, I think that for Congo, for Uganda, the primary interest of Uganda is to secure that border and that trade route. You know, with the skirmishes, with the tension with Rwanda in 2019 for the last 3 years.
Border in Western Uganda, and the trade route in northwest Uganda.
Eastern, really to the trade route that leads Uganda to the Eastern DRC market. That is the strategic and the security component and the trade considerations are the strategic interest of Uganda in this. And to the extent that the operation Shuja continues, then for us, we do not have, I assume, at least the Ugandan state police does not have issue with the Congo's decision to say on the East African standby force leave, as long as this relationship, continues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Edgar, your 1 minute.
Yeah, I did author an essay that was published, I think, in the Sunday Monitor of Jan 2022. The title is Balkanization, Dialogue and Conflict Transformation in the DRC. The salient features of that essay are that many of the attempts at addressing conflict in the DRC are the usual copy and paste: disarmament, demobilization, resettlement. Now, after resettlement, what next? Many of these militia forces in the Eastern DRC are composed of mainly mercenaries and soldiers of fortune. The life of a mercenary, the life of a soldier of fortune is more profitable than returning to normal life. So unless and until that dynamic is addressed, peace shall continue eluding us in that part of the DRC. Very lastly, when you introduce the aspect of secession, I heard the Betera Bisimwa. I have avoided mentioning names. On this occasion, I'm mentioning that name. The head of the M23 talked about secession of the Kivu from the rest of the DRC. I can't imagine anything more. I don't want to use adjectives on air, but I mean, the Rwandaphone, so-called Kinyarwanda-speaking people in the Kivus, are the minority. They are Bashi, they are Nandes, they are Bafulero, who are not necessarily Kinyarwanda-speaking people. Now, when you talk about balkanization, when you talk about secession in the DRC, which is also supported by that white elephant, that white elephant. Problems. I know that's why you're saying it's not safe for me to I'll let Malcolm come in. Now, once you start talking about secession in the DRC, it reignites memories of the Katanga attempt at secession. And once you talk about secession of the DRC, it will have a ripple effect on the rest of Africa. Remember, Angola has similar issues over the what? Cabinda enclave. So, by all means, believe me, the South African development community is going to stand with Kinshasa. So, East African community has to wake up to that reality and deal with it.
Thank you. Malcolm, the safest person to conclude.
I'm hoping not to disappoint.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that the views shared are very illuminating. But what kept going through my mind, and when we were preparing, when I got to know the topic, was just thinking out loud how very alive King Leopold's ghost is in the DRC, and it is very alive. It is very well and being fed. I don't know if it's the white elephant that is feeding it alone. I think two things. One is that, and I think Simon mentioned this, that it's a real hoodwink to think that by sending out troops of neighboring countries and your closest neighbors and bringing in far off neighbors from somewhere, you are going to convince voters that you're taking this relationship very seriously, when those neighbors have vested economic interests in that country. We can't be building roads into the DRC and the UPDF contingent is going, and there's an assumption that actually the relationship is being severed entirely. And I think Edgar mentions a very interesting point about the economic incentives for conflict to continue. Whether it is with the soldiers of fortune that he talks about, or with the white elephant that he has refused to mention. I think until those get addressed, it's almost a matter of wait and see, because come end of the elections, give it a year, UPDF is going to be back in there, and it will be business as usual. And maybe
the budget here will talk about roads going there,
and the benefit that we are going to get from there, and maybe there will be a supplementary budget to that as well.
Safe enough.
Oscar, I didn't know you were such a coward.
No, I like this. Show to end well.
He receives many phone calls after the
show. No, but we're protected. We have my bigger brother, Moses.
So, thank you, listeners of Capital Gang. Thank you, Edgar Tabaro. Thank you, Simon Opoka. Yes, very illuminating today. Thank you, Ivan. Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you, Moses. Star Cafe, thank you very much for powering the gang. I think today the one who was shining the most must have been Ivan, because
the sausages are few that have been left.
Yes.
Ivan did a passionate plea.
Yes. And I am Oscar Semoyam Soke, and I shall see you next week.